I'm Judy Pierpont. I'm also a landowner and refused the advances of landmen about 15 times. I also participated in the petition drive and we found that 75, 80, sometimes more on certain days, people were extremely thankful that we were approaching them and asking them, and were glad to sign. They are informed and distressed about how life here in Dryden, for them as householders, residents, landowners, would change. It would impinge on their rights. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work and the dedication that you have put into crafting this ban. And it's so important, I feel, to have a ban to protect the residents of Dryden. We know that once the gas companies have their permits, we will have very little, if any, power over controlling or to control them. We've heard from people who have leased and whose land is being drilled in Pennsylvania that they're just rolled over. They have very little control over the drilling companies themselves. And I would like to support what Buzz said and stress the importance of explicitly prohibiting certain activities usually associated with gas drilling, which themselves and in general are undesirable or harmful. A law that incorporates generally applicable zoning prohibitions expresses more intrinsically the harms that we seek to avoid, and is more likely to survive a legal challenge, more likely not to be challenged at all. I'll mention some of the ancillary uses or activities that we would want to make sure such a law would explicitly prohibit. Our comprehensive plan in Dryden expressly envisions Dryden as essentially rural and emphasizes the importance of maintaining a livable and healthy environment. It seems that we should stress the absolute incompatibility of uses and activities that are high-impact industrial in nature. What we expressly don't want is activities characterized as high-impact industrial, such as disturbance and paving of large swaths of rural countryside, fragmentation of the land by gathering lines and pipelines, cutting of trees to accommodate these, compressor stations giving off noxious vapors as well as loud noise 24/7 for as long as gas continues to flow, an increase in heavy truck traffic day and night, truck stops and staging areas, the taking of huge amounts of waters from our streams and aquifers, the destruction of good roads and the fouling of our air, which always happens where there's gas drilling, or the presence and transfer of toxic substances, spills onto our soil, seeping over time into groundwater and aquifers and running into streams will happen if such substances are present or being transferred in the town, whether they are destined for future use in drilling or are a waste product. Some of these activities may come to Dryden even if there is not actually drilling here. Ancillary activities may be cited here. Making sure that the intention of our law is fully and most securely accomplished will be accomplished by having a law that names the activities and uses we find unacceptable in a generally applicable zoning ordinance. Yep. To avoid a due process legal challenge, a charge that the law regulates beyond the scope of actual harms, our ordinance should be specific about the harms that the law is intended to protect us from.
Thank you. Whoops, I'm sorry, Joe Wilson.
My opinion on the ban in front of you was recorded, fortunately, in the Ithaca Journal, so I don't have to repeat any of that. What I do want to do is apply common sense to some of the comments that have already been made opposing the ban, and comments about the rights of property owners. Here's common sense. If fracking comes here, my value of my residential property and the residential property values of everybody else here will go down. My rights and the rights of every resident of the town to clean air will be threatened, will be actually polluted. Their clean water may be threatened. Their roads will be destroyed. Their quiet enjoyment of the kind of town that we now have and the reasons we moved here will also be destroyed. That's what the history of Bradford County tells us. That's what the history of fracked communities in the West tell us. That's why Canada has banned hydrofracking in the provinces where it had already started. So that's one. Common sense. The middle ground that Mr. Schickel referred to that will take us from somewhere in between two extremes and can take us quite a bit of time to arrive at, relies on things that the state government, not the town government, will do. In particular, taxing the production of gas and the regulation of the industry. Common sense. History tells us that our governor has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars of donations from the energy companies who want to frack the Marcellus Shale. Our legislators entertain on a regular basis, if not a constant basis, the lobbyists from those energy companies, and they too take more donations than all of us here can marshal to give to any one candidate, let alone all of the assembly people and all of the senators. So do we think that that government and that governor are going to tax the industry that donates big clots of money to them? No, that's not common sense. That's a pie in the sky. Finally, why rush? The governor has said on July 1, we will have our fracking regulations in place. After that, there is no guarantee that there will be any delay before permits will start to flow. Common sense. Is there urgency? Is time precious? Yes. That's what common sense is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to pray?
I'd like to express my gratitude to the members of this board. I know that you've postponed things in your lives, you've attended extra meetings, and you've sat up late at night reading dense documents in order to act to protect Dryden residents from the threatening tide of gas drilling industrialization. I know from my own experience in the last several years that this gas drilling information is not easy to digest. And I thank you for listening, for reading, and for acting on our behalf. The proposed amendment to the Dryden zoning that Jason has shared with us is, as the people before me have said, a wonderful first step in raising a defense against heavy industry taking a bite out of Dryden. Banning exploration, drilling, and storage of gas and oil in Dryden is music to my ears. Some people have raised the issue of landowner rights. I'm a landowner. I have a farm. I also have rights. I have the right to quiet enjoyment of my land. Bruno asked us to take it into consideration the long-term implications of acting. He asked, whose farm is next? Whose livelihood is next? And I say that mine is next if gas drilling comes to Dryden. That my farm will be valueless, that my livelihood will be, I won't have a livelihood on my farm. If neighboring towns, if the governing people in neighboring towns don't come to the same conclusions that you have, that banning this menace to our quiet enjoyment is a good thing to do, then we in Dryden will be subject to those ancillary activities. I live on a county road. There's a pipeline that crosses the north end of that road. If, for instance, in Caroline, drilling is allowed, their trucks will want access to that pipeline. They'll travel my road because it's the straight line. They want access to the pipeline because it'll take their gas to the international market where the gas is traded, not in New York. They're going to want to run a supply line along my road. They'll need compressor stations to move the gas in the pipeline. They'll need to truck the drill cuttings and the flowback fluids to a disposal facility. So those trucks may carry hazardous waste past my house. People in this room are familiar with the 90-degree turn at the bottom of Irish Settlement Hill, but I wonder how many accidents the Texas waste haulers will have to have before they too know that turn. The additional language that Buzz Levine and Judy Pierpont have already talked about, adding to the language crafted by attorneys Perkins and Leifer. If that language is added, I'll feel a little bit more secure. I'll know that we have the added insurance of expanded coverage for the ancillary activities that go hand in hand with the exploration, drilling, and storage of gas.
You need to wind up, please.
I urge you to add that language to our zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Ivan Carpenter.
I can speak from back here, I think. A couple of the things that have been mentioned that concern me is everybody talks about how the change of the face of Dryden will be changed forever with the gas drilling. Dryden used to be a wooded community, and then it became an ag community. Now it's a housing community. Personally, I don't like houses. I'm in the ag end of things. I prefer the open spaces. I am next door to Paul Cook. If they drill well on his property, it could be affecting my water supply. 3 wells on my property. It might not either. It could, it couldn't. They could go dry on their own. Have nothing to do with gas drilling or anything. They could just go dry. That's life. The zoning setbacks and things that Bruno mentioned, I think would make an excellent addition to any language that the zoning wants to put into some sort of resolution. I think that would be, you know, having them back away from the road so that they're not visible. And along those lines, got my mind thinking of, gee, I wonder what it was like when they were building the dormitories for everybody on Lee Road. Just above the village water reservoir, I would think that would have been a whole lot of concern for everybody in the village that their water was going to be polluted. Everybody on Lee Road listening to the trucks backing up, beep, beep, beep. I would think that would drive them nuts during the construction process. The addition to TC3. The Kimberly Drive, everybody on Lake Street when Kimberly Drive was being developed. There are always going to be some inconveniences that we're going to have to put up with. That's part of the progress of change in the community. I'm willing to live with it because I have to live with, you know, my neighbors. I'll live with it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Hillary Lambert. I was born in the old Ithaca Hospital and raised in Dryden. I'm a landowner there. And I've got 2 points to make this evening. One, I've noticed there seems to be a script to urge people to slow down, to take time, to think things over, to be gradual, to step back. I would like to remind people that it's almost 2 years ago now that the Bone Plain Road Citizens Group had an article about them in the Dryden Courier, and there has been since then a very long, slow, gradual, scrupulously public set of meetings, people coming to these meetings and expressing their concerns, reporting and writing updates, and so on. This has been a slow, long, gradual process. Point 2. Dryden's decisions here impact not only Dryden residents, but downstream water users. I'd like to remind you that we have 2 majestic creeks that run through Dryden. Fall Creek's headwaters are in Cayuga County. We are the stewards of that water as it courses its way through Dryden, added to by many tributaries, and is then used by Cornell University and others for their water supply before arriving at Cayuga Lake. So anything we do here will impact downstream users, as with 6 Mile Creek. Its headwaters are on Hammond Hill in Dryden. It then works its way through part of Dryden, Danby, and Caroline before it is used as Ithaca's water supply. So I really appreciate what you're doing here, and a lot of people are talking about their rights, their freedoms, and we also have to think of the rights, freedoms, and uses that we pass along to those who live downstream of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Zabuda.
Marianne, something, I don't know whether people know, I'm not sure the speaker list is over there. There's the second page.
Anybody who would like to speak who hasn't signed up, feel free.
Okay, good evening. Thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. I also want to thank you for all your efforts. This has been a long process, and we have been coming to town board meetings twice a month now for at least the past 9 months. I went back and looked at my calendar just to verify that before I came. So this has been a public process, and for those of you that are here tonight, it's great to see such a wonderful crowd. But there have been many meetings where there have been 4 of us in the room talking with the town board about this. So this has been a long process. We don't need to slow down. We are in danger if we slow down. This needs to happen this summer. We need protection. So I just want to start with that. I also echo what others have said tonight about adding the phrasing to the resolution, or not the resolution, the amendment, that to the zoning, the current zoning law. We need to address the impacts of heavy industrial use. This is not really about the natural gas industry. This is the issue that spawned this movement, but it's not really about that industry. And so this is about protecting our way of life, our community character, and preserving our environment. The natural gas industry is a threat to that. But there are other threats, and there are other things associated with that industry that come along with it. Once this is known as an area where industry is welcome, they will come. So we need to protect ourselves, and we need to add that extra language to this amendment. We need to enact legislation that protects us from the harm that they will do. This is not an easy subject, and I realize that there are differing opinions throughout this community, and your decisions will have long-lasting effects. There have been many comments tonight and in the past about landowner rights. Well, I'm a landowner, and I have rights as well. I have the right to peaceful enjoyment of my property, and I'm fighting to stay on my property. If heavy industry comes to Dryden, I'll have to leave. That's all there is to it. I'm not willing to live with it. And I'm not willing to put my health and my welfare at risk. And one last comment. I am really appalled that someone that we entrust with the health and welfare of our children can be willing to expose them to our most valuable natural resource, our children, to the pollutants of heavy industrial development. I think that that is probably the worst thing that I've heard all night.
Thank you. Joanne, that was asked.
Hi, folks. Good evening. First, I want to thank the board for protecting residents by working to get educated about the industrialization that accompanies the oil and gas industry. This is a critical moment in Dryden's history. In fact, we're making history. It is also an exciting time. The residents of our town are fortunate that our town board is working very hard to protect us, to keep us a rural, clean, and prosperous community that attracts businesses that will not come if industrialization by the industry that yields toxic chemicals and uses methods that are known to be harmful to the environment, the land that they're using, the air, and an industry that harms us. It is not only the natural gas industry, any industry that uses the carcinogens that this industry in particular uses, I don't think should be welcomed in this community. Other green businesses won't come to this community if it is industrialized, and other people won't as well. Words that must be used that don't rule out any particular industry, but rule out all industries that are known to use carcinogens that are harmful to all of us, and that is high-impact industrial use that must be used to protect us. To the fact that the gentleman spoke earlier about gas and staying here in the United States. Actually, the U.S. is at maximum capacity storage for natural gas. You can find that out on the Department of Energy's website, and is becoming widely known. It is the President's agenda to include natural gas development, to export natural gas to generate cash. Why should we, America, continue to allow multinational corporations to ruin our lands, contaminate our waters, our air, and across this nation, then just to sell it to another country? I think that's deplorable. The issues of America's fate really is at hand across this nation with the oil and gas industries. They really are taking our water, which is not replenishable, contaminating air immediately as drilling begins. And I've been living in a house that's half built because my neighbors decided to lease their land. I have not finished my house. I would love to finish my house and stay here, but I can't do that because it will be worthless when I'm surrounded by gas pads. And for those of you that think one pad is just a well, one well pad can yield 16 wells. Those 16 wells can be indefinitely fracked. So once they are here forever. Not a year, not 5 years, not 25 years, forever. And you ought to think about that, because your voice and your vote count. This is what is changing history for your town right now. And I thank all of you for coming out here tonight, because you didn't have to. but you did because you care about your community. If you care about your neighbor, don't sign a lease.
Two things. You need to talk to the board, and sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Simon St. Mark.
When I spoke before the board in April, I was concerned that this board had been slow to respond to threats to the town, people with power, people with bad ideas who thought that they were, holders of a winning lottery ticket. I'm very pleased to see that the board has actually responded. I'm not surprised to see that there are lottery ticket holders out there who are deeply disappointed that they might not get to cash in. I ask for the sake of their neighbors and the town that you resist these excitements. I am very pleased to see that the board moved as rapidly as it did with this ban. I agree with previous speakers that there are ways to tighten this ban, to make it more defensible and to make it more complete, and I hope you'll consider them. But as a first step in the legal conversation, I think this is a wonderful place to be, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Robertson. I think you came in after I announced that we're trying to stick to 2 minutes. I've not succeeded, but
Okay.
many people have made it to 4 without being cut off.
Okay. There's no such thing as a little drilling. It's like being a little pregnant. I recently had the opportunity to fly over Pennsylvania in a Susquehanna County in a single-engine plane, so we're very low. We can see everything. They're just getting started with drilling, so it's nothing like Bradford County where I hope to go later in the summer. There was pretty much on every other hill either a drilling pad being built or a gravel pit to get the gravel to create level drilling pads. So it was clearly going to transform their landscape. Towns don't have the right legally to regulate this industry. That's a DEC. That's by state law up to the DEC. So pacing, the development and the spacing units, those are all issues that this board doesn't have the right to weigh in on. Confiscation of rights, something like 94%, let me back up, about 6% of the residents in Tompkins County own all the leases. So if they are doing something that will disturb the quiet enjoyment of the property of the rest of the 94% of the rest of us, I wonder whose rights are being confiscated. And quiet enjoyment is a particular legal right that we all have, anybody who owns property. We hear so much about the economics of this industry. The county assessment department and realtors are finding that property values are going down already. People are walking away from sales because they hear about a neighboring lease. That's even before the drilling is here. I wonder if people understand who have ag exemptions, agricultural exemptions, that if you have a drilling operation on your land, it's very probable that your ag exemption goes away because that's not an agricultural use. I wonder if that's something that you've been made aware of by the landmen. Research from out west, where they've had much longer experience with this, shows that the social costs outweigh the benefits. Homelessness, crime, many deleterious effects begin right away, and any revenues that do show up generally don't come for about 10 years after you've already been seeing the social cost to the community. Energy independence, people have been talking about they're selling leases to China, they're selling the gas to Europe. This is not about energy independence, it's about people outside New York State making a lot of money. 90% of the workers come from out of state on drill pads in Pennsylvania. They're not even mostly local jobs. Even if we could solve all the environmental problems, all the social problems, all the economic problems, supposedly, that come with this drilling, Researchers at Cornell have shown that climate change will be exacerbated with this industry. It's supposed to be the cleaner fuel. Well, it's actually not true when you count up all the emissions from the beginning of the operation to the end of it. Shale gas is worse than coal over a 20-year time frame. In addition, if we flood the market with even more cheap gas, it makes it even more impossible economically for people to transform, to make a transition to renewables, like you did with this town hall, with geothermal unit. I mean, you had to weigh the cost, and what was the payback period? Well, the cheaper gas is, the longer that payback period is, the more impossible it will be for us to develop a sustainable future. Go slow. We've been studying drilling intensively for about 3 years, and we just keep finding out more terrible things about it. This town board has done many things to preserve and improve our town's economy and our quality of life. Passing this ban, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm staying out of that part of it, but passing this ban will be the most important action you can take for our future, and I really thank you very much for all the work you've done on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Levine.
Hi, I too want to thank you for all your hard work. I guess I would like to respond to Bruno Schickel. I'm glad to see that Bruno is getting his political voice in shape for his run for the town board. His rhetorical statements about how this ban might lead to a communist takeover in Dryden might well play in Alabama, but I think the people of Dryden are too smart to buy that argument ad absurdum. Bruno seems to be proposing the domino theory of zoning, and the lack of logic would be blatant to somebody in Philosophy 101. What's wrong with this analogy? Well, keeping your neighborhood land agricultural offers many advantages to the entire society. It helps everyone. That's why we pay for it. And by the way, it helps to keep the kind of land use that we all chose when we selected Dryden as our home. However, despite the goodness of such a purpose, to simply rezone it after the fact would indeed be an unfair taking, as Bruno suggested. So there, I agree with Bruno. But unlike agriculture, inviting fracking into your land strongly impacts your neighbor's land adversely and is a violation of your neighbor's rights. I live on Ringwood Road. Given our current proper zoning, you could not build any business across from my house. I bought my 100 acres in the town of Dryden because I believed zoning would protect me. But if my neighbors invite in fracking, they would cause me enormous problems that would violate the promises made to me by the pre-existing zoning. They would disrupt 35 years of hard work on my part to preserve the beauty of my 100 acres on Ringwood Road. To suddenly allow this industrial use of my neighbor's land would indeed violate my rights. It has already disrupted people's property stability. Since this was the most powerful rhetoric of Bruno's speech, I've addressed it first. But I would also like to address the more reasoned argument mentioned by Bruno that we could be moderate and expect rational progress. My imagery went to the Bible, to David and Goliath. We would have to have the faith of David to believe that this would be a level, rational playing field. The gas companies are indeed Goliaths, perhaps behemoths. And I don't think we should expect God to intervene in this particular battle. We should have the God-given sense to know when we encounter the devil. We must be David. And there is no doubt that we would have little control once we allow in this particular devil. They have endless resources. We can make rules and levy fines against them for violating those rules, and they will laugh at our fines as they write the check because they have endless money. It is petty cash. They have no responsibility or loyalty to our land. They live in Beijing, in Delhi, in Oslo, and the gas may not even stay in this country. There is no one to protect us but us. We are David. This is a new devil. Hydraulic fracking is not your father's drilling. We must tell the gas company, and it is naive for people to say that this is just like any other use, like building dorms at TC3. We must tell the gas companies that Dryden is not for sale. We are not a third world country whose resources they can exploit unjustly, even as they destroy our way of life. It is common for us to say that those who sow the wind shall reap the whirlwind, from Hosea. But the more detailed version of this biblical warning is remarkably to the point of our warnings about the hazards of fracking. And it goes, "They have planted the wind and will harvest the whirlwind. The stalks of grain wither and produce nothing to eat. And even if there is any grain, foreigners will eat it."
Super.
I just want to address, this will just take a minute, I just want to address one issue that was raised by some of the people. And that issue is that a governmental agency, such as yourselves, shouldn't have the right to take away their right to have their land drilled and their mineral rights under that land to sell it or whatever they want to do with it. And addressing that issue, I would just like to mention one thing that's happened in New York State. New York State has declared that the water supply and watershed area above New York City, it will not be drilled. Why? Isn't that taking the rights away from all these landowners and all these farmers that want to drill and want to get this money? Why are they doing that? Because of the harm it could do. So I just want people to think about, why is New York State preventing any gas company from hydrofracking in the New York City watershed? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am a landowner, so it's arguably the prettiest 30 acres in Dryden. And we would not
That's
have
fighting
moved,
words in this room, I think.
we would not have moved here if there was gas drilling in this area. And I think that I'm a pretty good representative of our generation, of my wife and our generation. And I can tell you right now that people will not move to this area if there's drilling in Dryden. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wanted to speak who had not signed up? Thank you very much for your comments. You've all hit various nails on the head. It's a difficult issue, and we have been working on it for a long time. I think that's all I want to say for now. But thank you very much for coming. You can sit through the rest of our business here for a moment.